Hi guys, how you going? Welcome back to the channel, or if you're new, welcome. So today we're back in the back of the Pajero. So we've got a big trip planned and we're leaving in a couple of weeks. Well, I thought I'd go through today for you because I've had quite a few questions, and I've just actually ripped the kitchen out and all of my back seats out, and it was a good opportunity to give you a really detailed look at the 12 volt setup in the back of the Pajero. Now, I haven't seen anyone set their Pajeros up like this in particular, so I'll give you a bit of a deep dive in relation to the 12 volt setup and just the positioning of the batteries. And again, any questions or whatnot, just drop them in the comments below and I'll answer as many of them as possible. Again, I'm no mechanic, I'm no auto elec or anything like that, but just a bit of common sense. I think I've worked out a pretty good solution for me to get the battery in a place which is nice and compact. One of the reasons I've actually got everything out of the car at the moment is for this big trip. We've got a lot of gear we've got to carry, and I'm pretty quickly working out that all the stuff I want to take, I can't take unless I strip some weight out. So what I'm doing today in particular is actually swapping out the King's 120 amp hour AGM and swapping it over for lithium for weight saving. I'll take you through a bit of the process on that too. All right, let's go have a look. Alright guys, this is what she all looks like. Alright, so what I ended up doing with mine was I ended up cutting away, so this wall normally tucks in here, so I ended up cutting away basically a bit of the plastic under this vent. There is nothing else actually under there, it was just basically an open cavity. In this vicinity, the plastic work here I cut away, and then I cut away just a nice little neat line there. All right, and then I created this sort of timber box which ended up mounting to chassis points, chassis bolt holes in the floor, and I've actually got a fake timber floor in here as well, and the whole reason for this was to be able to secure this down properly, secure the fridge and something to mount the kitchen off. So it's super secure, it's all strapped down. It's been in there for several years and has not moved one iota. All right. Now I've been running that King's AGM. It is definitely the 120 amp hour battery, and mate, I've had this thing in here for years, and mate, it's the best battery I've ever had. I have absolutely punished it, and it has been absolutely fantastic. But the thing is, it weighs almost, I think it's 29.7 kilos. All right, and I need to save weight in the vehicle, and hence I've just literally taken that one out, popped the lithium in, and this thing only weighs 12 kilos. All right, so you know we're talking a 17-18 kilo saving, which is huge. And if you go back to the channel, there's a whole heap of videos on all the weight saving measures I'm doing in relation to all of this. So otherwise, I mean, that's the heart of the system, the battery. We've got the King's 1500 watt pure sine wave inverter. That's been working really well. Every time I've used it, had no issues whatsoever. I've been running that for a good year or two now, no issues. And then again, the standard, you know, King's panel with the older version of the 12 volt DC to DC charger. Again, we've got, you know, your solar input here. This is just an additional 12 volt output, and your variety of switches, which I've got, you know, lights, fridges and so forth, all sort of switched onto it. Okay, and that's got its own little inbuilt fuse box, and that fuse box basically is for every basically switch and cigarette lighter point. So, and then I've got a fire extinguisher here, and you might think it's weird to have one here. Well, this is if something happens at the front of the vehicle, and I've also got one under the front seat for if anything happens this side of the vehicle. So I always keep two in the car. So yeah, so it was super easy. Again, just unbolt that battery, put that new battery in, and then the way these are set up is basically there is a wire which is for a calcium battery. There's a wire for AGM, a wire for lead acid, and a wire for lithium. So all I did was unplug the AGM one, plugged in the lithium one, and that was all you had to do. So it was super straightforward and simple to swap it over. So nothing else. But I'll take you through, I'll just show you a bit into the wiring and how it's all been done. because there's a little bit going on here, but I'll take you through that. Obviously the box, just follow the King's instructions in relation to how you wire that up. In relation to what I've got going on here, I'll give you a closer look. All right guys, so let's have a closer look at the battery. So obviously you'll have this in whichever orientation you want. The way it worked out best for me was I've got positive terminal here, I've got negative terminal here. Now I'll take you through all the cables. We've got this wire here, is the positive terminal, which is going straight to the King's inverter. Then we've got the negative terminal here, which is earthed right off the chassis directly behind it. Okay, you got to make sure that these cables are as short as possible. So these, when you purchase this, it comes with only 1/2 meter of cable, and that's a sign of basically they want to keep this as close as possible to the unit. And you want to maximize the performance, so you'll end up with too much voltage drop if you have a really long cable. So try and keep that as short as possible, and obviously try and keep these fans clear, because when it's working and it's getting a bit of a workout, the fans do kick on quite a bit. And there's a variety of different inverters now. Again, the King one's been fine for what I've needed for. I've had no issues at all. All right, so that's the inverter. Now the next thing I've got here is this main line here is the main line that feeds into the King's panel. So you end up having a line coming from the front of the car, which feeds directly up into the panel, and you might not see it sort of over here. They've got this really heavy gauge, wire that's running all the way from the front of the vehicle. And again, check all your wire gauges and make sure you're running some decent stuff. Now what I've done to make it nice and easy, I haven't hardwired as such this battery into that. I've basically got Anderson plugs. Okay, so I've got an Anderson plug where if I had to basically just pull this out, I just unplug that, and it just sort of comes out nice and easy. And if I have to basically rewire anything up, it just makes it a lot easier. And then what I've got this done is the main line that's coming from the front of the car has a 50 amp fuse at the main battery. And then also here, I've got a 50 amp MIDI fuse here as well. So you make sure you carry spare fuses. All right. So that's tucked in there. It's relatively easy. I've actually got a cover that just sits on that. So I can take the cover off when the kitchen is in this space and I can get access to the fuse. All right. So that's basically the main lines that the battery is feeding the panel and vice versa. All right. Now we've got this line here. All this line is simply, and this is basically a 15 amp 12 volt output from the King's panel, and I've just got that going to an Anderson plug down here. So this one is coming from the King's panel. So in essence, this is being powered from this battery. All right. And then obviously that is then fused in the fuse box in the panel. And then I've got this other Anderson plug here. Now where this is coming from, this actually goes all the way to the front of the car. And this is where I have a secondary battery under the bonnet. All right. And why I've got this one here in particular, I use this to run my King's 12 volt oven and basically anything else I want to plug into it. All right. So at the end of the day, this is my main battery for, you know, my fridge and everything else and all my other gear. But because the King's oven does draw quite a lot of power, what I did was I ended up having a second battery under the bonnet, and I've got this line here. And then what I've done also, I've fused it at this end and fused it at that end. Now the King's oven itself does have a 15 amp fuse built into it, and then it comes to this point, and then there's another fuse here. Make sure you fuse both ends. And in particular, again, I've got a 30 amp fuse here, and again, because the cable can take that sort of power before it needs to blow. Make sure you always match your fuses to the cable. All right. Don't think you're going to put a 100 amp fuse in it and you're going to draw 100 amps on it. You're going to short things out and create a fire. I'm no auto electo, please. Go get advice from your auto elects and those in the know. Next thing, okay, you got this little red wire here, and there's this other little red wire here. Now these actually got little 1 amp fuses in them, and what they are, they're actually for my Victron Smart Shunt. So let's go have a closer look at that. So tucked in under here is my Victron Smart Shunt. Now with this one here, this basically allows me to connect to the Victron app and actually monitor the performance of this, how it's going, what's coming in, what's going out. So that's this line here. And then because this line is coming from the main battery at the front, this Victron Smart Shunt has the ability to monitor a second battery. So what I've done is I've got a line running to this battery, so therefore I can see where my other secondary battery up the front is at, where this battery is at, how much power, but it's basically this one with this battery, you're getting minimal knowledge. All you're getting is basically what the actual voltage of the battery is, whereas with this one, you get the full kit and caboodle. Okay, what's coming in, what's going out, how much your alternator's pumping in, how much your solar's pumping in, when you've plugged something and then you're using it, basically how much power is being used, what wattage. So it's really, really good. And then what I also do is I have these other devices where I've just wired these up. So basically when I plug solar into it, depending on where the solar's coming from, I can actually monitor basically what's coming in. So fantastic, absolutely love it. And then it just so happens, again, you go back to the video, I've got another 200 watt solar panel on the roof here. I haven't sort of permanently mounted, wired it in through the roof yet, and I'm sort of a little bit apprehensive about putting holes in my roof. All right guys, and also if you're intrigued in relation to how I've mounted this panel in the window, and some people, again, don't quite understand how I've done it. I took this panel off, right? And then I've actually, I've got a metal, I've cut out a metal, actually what is it? It's this sandwiched aluminium stuff. But basically it's all mounted off the chassis of the car, okay? And it's mounted at about 8 different points. So it's like absolutely rock solid. And I'll give you a bit of a look from outside. So from this side, again, it's not touching the glass in any way, shape or form. I can still open the window if I want, all right? And if you get a bit of a close up, the actual panel is mounted at these sort of 4 points onto this, right? And then this is then mounted here, 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 here. So it's been fantastic, no issues whatsoever. This is the aerial though, and it does interfere with the aerial. So, but I don't really use the radio in my car. So it's not a concern for me. But yeah, no, that works absolutely beautiful. And again, as you can see, I've got sort of the fridge on this side, and then I've got a cable which runs just under here. And again, I don't use that cavity underneath. So I'm actually looking at putting a bladder in there at the moment. So there'll be a bladder, and then I'm going to tuck in a water pump under here. But again, that's another video. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. And I encourage you, when you actually wire up these systems, to keep note especially, and even if you put together a bit of a video of basically how you've sort of wired it up and where all your fuses are. Keep note that, you know, you've got the 30 amp fuse here, you've got a 1 amp fuse here, a 1 amp fuse there, a 50 amp MIDI fuse there. So if something does go on and it does get switched off, and even draw the wiring diagrams for reference, so you've got something to come back to. All right. Yeah, so this all came about because I was purely looking for weight savings, but I thought it was a good time to again take you guys through it, because I'd had quite a few questions. Yeah, give you a bit of confidence to sort of do it yourself. But again, if you're not sure, go get some help from, you know, one of your mates, or go to an auto elect and get it all sort of sussed out. It's not that complicated sort of once you get your mind around it. These days, there's a lot more stuff out there. Like, if you don't want to go to the point of wiring up all of this permanently mounting it in your car, there's all these new power stations. I recently did a whole heap of reviews on the AllPowers S2000 PRO power station. And that's basically got, you know, 120 amp hour battery in it. It's got 2000 watt inverter built into it. It's got an inverter built into it. You know, you've got 4 power points with 240 volts. You've got USB-C, you've got USB, you've got solar inputs. You can get the flexible fold-out AllPowers solar panels. Again, go back to the channel. There's a whole heap of videos, but it's almost that actually does all of that. Okay, so in this one little neat little unit. And that's it, guys. And this is 13 kilos, right? And the King's lithium battery is 12 kilos, let alone the panel, the inverter, all the other gear. So this delivers everything there. And ultimately it's actually cheaper too. And it's so portable, and it's like 1.5 hours. And it's like 1.5 hours and it's fully charged. And it's 120 amp hours. You can plug it into the cigarette lighter, charge it in the car while you're driving, just like that. You can plug the solar panel in through the XT60 plug in the front, and it works just like that. It's got cigarette lighter points. So you can plug in stuff with the cigarette lighter. You've got your 240, all your USB-Cs and so forth, like I just said. And it's got this bloody digital panel which explains how much power is coming in, how much power is going out. And this has been sitting there actually for a good 3 weeks from our last trip. Still sitting at 100%, has not lost any charge. So that's been absolutely fantastic. I love it. And again, I'm taking on this trip again. I think I'm going to get to the point now where I'm trying to save more and more weight. Changing over to lithium was a huge win for me in relation to weight reduction. I think I'm at the point now where my King's oven, I think I might just run it off this. And then that battery at the front, I'm going to take it out. Because that's, again, 23 kilos, I think. And I'm trying to get the weight down in the front of the car also. Because the back of the car can carry a lot more weight than the front. Because again, once you put bull bar, once you put winch on, dual battery system, dual battery tray, it absolutely kills the weight in the front end. And a lot of cars, they don't like putting much in the front end. So, but yeah. So anyway, I got sidetracked then. I got a little bit excited about my AllPowers. Hope you got something out of it. Again, any questions, drop them in the comments below. Otherwise, again, go back to the channel. There's playlists everywhere of all this sort of stuff. If you need a hand, just let me know. All right, guys, take it easy. Again, like, subscribe, share it around. Drop us a super thanks if you like. And I shall see you in the next video, or out in the trails, or tracks, or out bush. All right, guys, cheers. Bye.